Hello, everyone, and welcome to another week's episode of VNture Podcast, brought to you by your hosts, Taros and MR. This week, we have a very special episode brought to us by a wonderful viewer who provided the topic for this week's episode. We will be crafting our own personal dream visual novels. That's right, instead of us talking about the same ones that we've been reading and sharing with the world, we are going to imagine what would be absolutely perfect in our eyes, something tailor-made for Taros and for MR. And I wonder, what would all you viewers think of it? So without further ado, MR, why don't you start us off? What would your perfect visual novel? What would it be?
Hello, everybody, and oh man, you know it, Alex. You know it when I read the email from our viewer with the suggestion. With this topic, I just had to overthink everything. I spent quite some time thinking about it, and this is the final result, okay? I identified that if I were to craft my perfect VN, there are three core pillars of what I enjoy in stories, mostly in VNs, but not only in VNs. And those are: 1. Fantasy world built upon a simple principle, but a principle examined deeply. And my inspiration for that is I really liked Psychopaths. And it's a topic of measurement and surveillance of mental state. Similarly, Evangelical had a simple principle: there are divine laws regarding infidelity and murder you cannot cross and you cannot break. Venus Blood, Gaia specifically, had a very interesting genetic problem to solve. It was a simple principle. I don't want to spoil too much, but it was a simple principle. When revealed, posed a very difficult dilemma. So, I really like in stories when you have a core principle, some sort of game changer, some sort of world-shaping rule or a setting that everything is built upon, but it is examined very deeply. So that's my first core pillar. The second core pillar would be the confrontation of such principle, or maybe inverting it, especially if explored in some sort of character growth way from some perspectives. And I remember specifically there is Data Life, one of my favorite light novels, which got an anime adaptation, has had that principle inverted. There are humans, there are extraterrestrial spirits. And in one episode, there was a very cool opening. The narrator sets the stage and the tone for every episode, and the one start is just gripped me, and I love that ever since, because it starts the episode with "Spirits are not human. Likewise, humans are not spirits, but nevertheless." Why is that? And that is such an interesting inversion. So, at some point, someone defined those concepts and said those are mutually exclusive, but no one really proved they are. And further in the story, there appears to be, for the first time, a human-made spirit, or at least converted. And like, damn, that's a very cool inversion of concepts. Those two tribes or those two beings are not mutually exclusive to each other. I'm like, oh, that's why I like it. You have a simple principle, a division of beings, and then you invert the concept and confront it. Like, damn, that's so cool. And with Baldur's Sky, that's another one that I really loved. It was a title that was exploring different kind of intelligences, including artificial intelligence. And even within the artificial intelligence, there were two kinds. And the title posed a question: is there even a possibility ever for two fundamentally different intelligences to completely shatter the barrier of understanding. I really like Bald Sky. So, okay. So we have 2 pillars so far. Any questions?
No. I'm interested to hear your third pillar and see where you go from there first.
Yeah. And the third pillar, to tie it all together, is journey. So, a discovery and growth through lenses of a character within that setting, and maybe embracing the inversion. I mean, it all depends. So, for example, I outline Fate. I feel Fate is a very great example. We have the Holy Grail Wall, we have our protagonist, and depending on the route, he changes his perspective of what a justice means and what it means to be hero of justice. And that I felt like, damn, I really like how they portrayed how Shiro ends depends of the path he chooses during the title. And those are vastly different conclusions that he reaches by the end of it all. For each and every route. I'm like, I am flabbergasted every single time I think about it. But similarly, Happy Maya, it's the title about Let It Go. So, protagonist is tied down by his feeling of remorse or something he doesn't really want to let go, which leads to the path of lucid dreams, hallucinations, and having mental breakdowns. And seeing he go through all of that to realize his only real solution to going past with his life is letting go, despite all the circumstances that surround him. I really like that journey. So yeah, those are 3 core pillars. We have a principle, some sort of fantastical idea, maybe a rule, maybe a setting. Then you have to confront it, especially if you invert it in some way. And then you have a journey for a character within that setting. So those are my 3 core pillars.
I wanted to point out it's very interesting the approach you took. It's all very big picture, the kind where you look at the overarching details and structure of a story. And that's the approach you took. Also, because I wanted to talk about one element of story crafting is when you have to set up the conflict, the spine, the backbone of a story. And the one you're describing, especially when you clued it in with hero's journey, was one of a singular character, in a way fighting against the structure of the world that you've created. How you have some overarching law, some guiding principle of the VN, and you really want to explore why it's set up the way it is, what happens if you rebel against it, how does that break the world, or maybe it doesn't. All surrounding one character and his own journey he undergoes between the big societal change and his own changing personality. And I thought that was very interesting that, you really nailed a lot of aspects of it. In the way that you set up this one character rising from nothing and having future far-reaching implications. And I also wanted to point out how it's very funny that you talked about so much of the big picture. You used so many examples from other visual novels you've read. But for your own singular dream visual novel, what are the specifics you would use in that title? Like, what kind of setting would you have? You mentioned having the one world-shattering principle, but if you could make your one perfect visual novel, what would that principle be?
Yes, and exactly, that's the step 2. After I recognize those pillars that I like, now what I would craft following my own guidelines, right? And the first that come to my mind, this is something I really enjoy in titles such as Everical, is the idea of gamification of your statistics, right? And just to explore that a little bit. In Evenical, it's all common knowledge and kind of public information how proficient you are with things. So, for example, if you have sword combat 1, you understand how to combat using swords, right? So, what if we take that and where it's a core setting? So, what if there is either an institution, divine law, something akin to that measures your proficiency at birth for a particular profession. So, for example, in that setting, people are born into profession. That person has been born a baker. That's it. The oracles have spoken. You will be a baker. That's the principle. Okay. So this is not that far off from, and this is why you can see scrolling past in the background Harry Potter and the sorting hat, which sorted them according to some sort of arbitrary conditions, right? Okay, so you get an assigned profession and proficiency to some craft at birth. That's it. So a long-term consequence of that might be the society changes, right? Because as a consequence of you not having choice, then there is no filtering process. There is no, I go to job interview to maybe get a job in bakery. No. The bakery company knows you are good at baking, and you know you're at least proficient at baking. That's it. Okay. So now we're cooking. Now we have a title in which you know what you'll become.
Mm-hmm.
So
society,
what you lose.
Yes,
yeah, exactly.
Society will dictate your job, your future for you.
Exactly.
Oh.
What you lose is potential, but what you get is path, a certainty of path in life. No, okay. So that's the principle. Okay, so what is the step number 2? Because you need to set up some sort of conflict, some drama, etc. So probably the inversion of that would be the movement and rebellion of people who want to craft their own destiny. People who don't want to be born into proficiency. They want a free will. They want a free choice. They were born a baker, but they actually want to be an architect. They want to build bridges. Yeah, but they can't because the system does not allow it. The oracle has spoken, you shall be baking. So they are fed up with that system. Okay. So, but also on the flip side, something that I alluded in the core principle. In order for you to get choice, you will have to face rejection. Inversely, people who are deep into the system will never face rejection. And maybe that would be a new emotion for all those rebels. Good or bad, but rejection will be something that accompanies free choice. And that's what I would say is that the exploration of that conflict and that inversion would be the number 2. And to tie it all together is number 3, the journey, the discovery, the growth of characters. So in this example that I shown, we have a VN about people born into proficiencies, and you take a role of a protagonist. And to continue that example, you have been born a baker. So you can bake cakes. And through choices in that VN, you can be defiant. And you're like, no, I will not bake cakes. And that would lead you toward the path of rebellion. Or maybe you will assimilate yourself into the system. You say, not only will I bake cakes, but I will be the best baker ever. The baker ending. I will be the bakest.
The bakest of all.
Yeah.
Yes.
Want to bake them all.
You mentioned having choices, so that was actually some of the stuff I was going to ask you. It's what particular setting would this take place in? Is this going to be modern day? Is it going to be like a future sci-fi story, or what? Do you have an idea?
I tend to like sci-fi. I think my personal preference is sci-fi. Not too far in the future, but future enough that is sci-fi. It's very hard to quantify. I don't think cyberpunk is my ideal, but somewhere in that region, I like that kind of. It's future enough that they have a creative freedom of exploring a lot of concepts, mecha, or maybe something like that, but maybe not too much. Sci-fi.
You want the best of both worlds, where you get that new advancement in technology, but it's still a familiar world.
Oh yeah. Exactly. Advancement technology, so you are free to create some new concepts, but it's still familiar enough so you can have that suspense of disbelief. Yeah.
Another thing, how long would you like your visual novel to be?
Oh no, don't say that.
Are you the kind who loves those 50-hour epics? Is that what you want?
Yes. The only logical answer for me is the longest.
Aha, nice. This will be an epic.
Exactly. And you freaking know it has glossary already.
Nice.
Obviously.
And perhaps the most important question of all, MR. This is a visual novel. Are there heroines?
They have to be, okay? They have to be.
You mentioned multiple choices. That means there's going to be multiple heroine routes?
Yeah. It has to be, yeah.
You wanted MR.
I know. Yeah. It has to be like that. You're right. There will be mates. You are correct.
All right. Yeah, there's going to be mates. Are there going to be emotos?
Yes. I can definitely see a sci-fi future with emoto mates. Yeah.
Are there going to be multiple kuderes?
Obviously. I'll invent a new tag for VNDB. Only kudere heroines.
Only kudere heroines. Oh, you're gonna tie it into the world building too. It's gonna be like, look at what this poor society has done. It has sapped the will and emotion of all its people. We're gonna fight to take it back.
Exactly, and you have to fight to get that smile.
Oh, you've got it all planned out.
Yep.
Exactly. Nothing less than perfection for MR.
Oh, yeah. Oh, please, now you have to share your ideas because you give me too much hope. I won't sleep today, okay?
Okay.
But perfect VNs.
Someday you will find that perfect VN, and it will be 10 out of 10. It will be your 15 out of 10. It will break the scale.
Exactly.
I hope that day for you, MR.
Thank you. So, Toby, what's your cooking?
What I'm cooking, what I've got brewed up in the kitchen.
Tell me.
Generally, I prefer, a wide variety of visual novel genres and types and mediums. But if I had to pick one after much thought, I would want my dream visual novel to be a mystery title. A crime has been committed, and probably the easiest one, a murder. Who did it? How did they do it? Which one of the, cast members involved could have possibly committed this heinous crime? I feel like mysteries always provide just inherently good, interest and intrigue and pacing. If I had to pick something, it would be a mystery. But I would still also want to have some aspects of a thriller and of drama as well. Because the thriller, you get a little bit of action, you get the danger, you get the sense of, oh no, the killer is still on the loose as we're investigating this murder. We could be next, or not just us. There could be more victims. We have to hurry it up and solve the case before it's too late. And so you get that action, you get that high intensity involved as well. And on the flip side, you need to also have the drama, the slower paced character building moments where you explore your cast and they share their motivations and their regrets in life and what they wish they could do better. That's how you breathe life into the characters and you make you care all about the cast. All while there's that question hanging at the back of your head, like, could this person who's sharing their deepest fears with me, could they also be a stone-hearted killer?
Whoa.
Exactly. I always love that. I always love that suspicion of who you can't trust, even as you're getting closer to everyone else.
So to recap what I got from you, right?
Mm-hmm.
You have one central mystery that started all, and maybe it spawns even smaller mysteries, right, along the way. But there is still one who did it central mystery, or even what happened, depending on how it's portrayed, right? Then on top of that, you have conflict. So it has to be something unsolved with a possibility of it's on the loose. I have to battle with my wits to outwit the perpetrator, right? Or maybe to avoid getting caught and being the next victim.
Exactly.
And the third,
yes.
And the third is to explore the cast of characters, maybe even introduce some romance, I don't know, by having some sort of cast of companions or sidekicks along the way.
And I'll get more into there later. I do want to finish up this setting by talking about how I want it to take place. I imagine it'd be modern day, or maybe we could even go into the past a little. Into, Victorian era sort of thing, where we don't have the modern conveniences such as phones or GPS and whatnot. I imagine we would have a scenario like a classic closed environment. Something like you're trapped on an island, on a mansion, invited from the host for what was supposed to be an intriguing vacation, or perhaps a reading of the will, or a doling out of inheritance, any of those classic tropes. And
wait,
mm-hmm.
That is so creative, because if you go back, especially mysteries, and especially to a period that is even remotely superstitious, you can hide solution by saying, oh, it has to be cursed, but it can be explained in some manner, or maybe convoluted machinery. That has so much potential.
Yeah, exactly. You raised that whole point of maybe the supernatural is involved. And I haven't given it that much thought. I don't know if I want to go that hard into my perfect visual novel, but I always did like that sort of overarching question mark hanging in the back of your head. Obviously, I haven't read it, but Umineko is a perfect example of, the difference between trying to find a logical answer to everything versus acknowledging the existence of magic.
Ooh.
And so when you have something like you're trapped on an island and then a week until the boat comes back, or a plane or something, the idea is you have all these people trapped, and it's not as simple as you can just run away from the mystery involved. You have to solve it, or else your life or more may be in danger. This is so far, it's a pretty normal setup for those kinds of dinner party mystery murders. But I like that. I like the theatrical, the melodramatic flair for these kinds of stories. And something like that may sound maybe stereotypical, or trite, or formulaic. But I've always been a real inside-the-box thinker, someone who you have your limitations and you explore the boundaries and you do as much as possible with what little you're given, and in the way you could subvert those little expectations. And so that's always been my bread and butter enjoyment. If I had to pick a favorite, it would be that exact kind of, flavor of murder mystery. But
a wise man once said that the best mysteries are the ones that leave clues so the reader can solve it by themselves. So I suppose your concoction would also follow that principle.
Exactly. Something that lays out the little breadcrumbs and rewards you for really poring over the details and happening to find it yourself. But I will admit, I'm not always the best and brightest when it comes to solving mysteries myself. I'm also the kind of person who loves just getting caught in the flow of the investigation, of the pacing, of the emotion, and someone who can also appreciate just that final showdown of wrapping it all up and pointing the finger dramatically at the culprit and saying, "You're the killer." I'm also a fan of that too. I did want to say that I do have one caveat to this whole element that, that ties in the whole aspect of visual novels, and that is the fact that you can have multiple choices. You have that freedom of somewhat being the investigator yourself. And I do want to include bad endings. Of you perhaps tipping your hand too early, getting yourself caught in the killer's crosshairs, and you die. A great example is Fate Stay Night, even though it's an action VN and that's kind of totally different flavor. Yeah. But still, it has plenty of bad ends where if you make the wrong choices, you will die immediately sometimes. Other times, it's clear that you've made your alliance with the wrong person and you pay for it much later down the road.
Exactly. Some bad choices are immediate in Fate, and some are very delayed, and you'll pay later in the future of that story.
Mm-hmm. All of which eventually culminates in a true route ending. The golden ending, the one where everything is solved. I always love those. I always love those as the proper conclusion. Even though you've got all that freedom to make choices, eventually there is one, author intended ending.
Yeah, makes sense. The mystery is the perfect setup for the true ending. Because sometimes I take issue with true ends when it comes to romance dramas. I'm like, but with mystery, with especially the murder mystery, what you put, this is the perfect true ender.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. There's the one way to solve the crime flawlessly and capture the criminal. That's always the goal, But when you mention heroines, well, I'm usually not interested in romance and age stuff. Usually they just get in the way of the pacing and they kind of kill whatever the story's going for. But
be honest.
For this scenario, I think it would be perfect to have a childhood friend who went along with the main character in the trip and who gets caught up in the danger and trapped in the scenario with the MC. That's perfect.
It is. I can't deny it. I mean, because it makes sense. You have a trusted partner on that journey.
Exactly. And of course, you may offer your trust to other people, but there's always that question mark of, they are still a stranger. I can't totally escape them. And you have your one childhood friend who you're pretty sure you can believe with all your heart. And as the events unfold, maybe she's something more than a friend. Ba-dum.
Oh my god.
Also, and this is my last own little personal desire out of this, one of the characters in the cast should be a robot pretending to be human. That's
okay. That's very specific.
Yes, I don't want to say anything about my reasons or whatnot, but just come on. That's my weak point. There always should be someone pretending to be human. And then the secret comes out later and they have to grapple with the whole humanity, what it means to be human, what it means to be good.
Oh my god.
So that's the one little thing I want to go out on a limb and I must include. But the rest, absolutely. A murder mystery trapped in a scenario with you and your wits trying to solve it. I know you mentioned, you asked me about the whole magic stuff, like Umineko. And, from what I know of Umineko, it does sound similar to this being my, perfect visual novel. But
yep.
Again, without going into spoilers, I'm pretty sure Umineko's big picture approach isn't really what I'm looking for. I put a lot of focus on the crime itself and solving it and the clues leading up to the discovery and the resolution of the crime. And I feel like, just from what I've heard, it might be my own opinion, that Umineko leans too hard into the real versus magic aspect than what I would prefer.
I see.
Also, Umineko has a massive cast. They have so many characters. What the hell?
Yeah, and how many of them are childhood friends? Right? This is very important for towers. Come on.
Mm-hmm. You were going to mention?
Yeah. I was going to clarify that I didn't necessarily say it has to be supernatural, but the fact it is in the past, which is what you suggested, and in retrospect, I don't know how you want to make it in the past and with robots, but I don't know. You have all the powers, I guess. So you can make it possible.
I will make it real.
Okay. I'm just saying, having superstitious people will make them approach some mysteries with, magic, curse, etc., which could be deduced and explained by science, maybe. I'm just saying, you could obfuscate some secrets with that.
Mm-hmm. Yes, yeah, that's a very good approach. Is that just the possibility of the supernatural and superstitious? Exactly. Would have a huge effect on some characters. You're right.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. So we'll have to add that into the mix. I gotta specify a few characters who are very superstitious or religious or magicians.
Ooh. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I did also want to give a quick shout out to the Karo no Shoujo series for, having a lot of what I liked. The mystery, the grisly crime, the drama involved. One thing that really killed it for me from what I played of the series is just their stupid choice systems. They are brutal to try and get through without a guide. And as much as I appreciate having that freedom of you trying to do it yourself, it leads to a lot of stupid scenarios where you have to go exact pixel hunting on some of the adventure segments.
Dang.
And you're limited too. It's like you got to get it now or it's gone and there's no indication and you are locked into a bad ending 2 hours later.
Oh.
Yeah, I mean,
that sucks.
Innocent Gray is infamous for doing that with their titles. You pretty much have to use a guide to get anywhere with them. And it's a real pain. But as far as the whole, the general atmosphere and the murder aspects and the trying to solve it, all of that stuff is peak. I love that. That's what I would try to hope for in my perfect visual novel.
Maybe such a nice way to tie it all together.
Exactly. Maybe we could combine our favorites, MR. We'll make one incredible golden title for the two of us.
Hey, and there will be a central principle, but also a central murder mystery. Damn.
It will be in the past, but somewhat sci-fi.
Because with somehow sci-fi you can introduce robots. See?
We're cooking. It will be on its own cut-off individual island, but it will involve a fight against society.
Fair enough.
We'll make it work. We'll make the impossible possible.
Yeah, let's start cooking. I'll bring my cauldron, okay?
There we go. And I'll write it, the whole thing, all 70 hours of it.
Perfect.
But as for everyone else listening, I would be very interested to hear what your perfect dream visual novel would be. What kind of genre? What kind of heroines involved? What kind of setting? Feel free to let us know as well, because I'd be interested to hear.
Exactly. We want to know how many kuderas you're going to include. It's very important, right? Mm-hmm. Very important.
Very.
So we want to hear from you guys, all our listeners. Thank you very much. And venture out.
Venture out.